She was only a child, her shoes barely tied, her cheeks streaked with tears, when she ran through the streets, clutching a small notebook to her chest. People stared, but no one stopped. Not until she reached the police station, her tiny voice breaking as she begged them to listen. What the officers discovered inside that notebook and what had driven her there in the first place would expose a truth so painful it left the entire town shaken. This wasn't just her story. It was a mirror of a deeper injustice still burning today. By most accounts, she was just another little girl in the neighborhood. 8 years old, small for her age, with curly hair that refused to stay down, and a notebook she carried everywhere. Inside its worn pages were sketches and stories, her way of escaping the world around her. On the outside, life looked ordinary. She walked to school each morning, waved shyly at the corner shop owner, and returned home before dusk. To anyone watching, she seemed quiet, reserved, maybe even a little shy. But behind that silence was a child carrying more than any child should. Her home wasn't filled with warmth, it was filled with whispers that she didn't belong, stares that reminded her she was different, and a coldness that seemed to grow heavier each day. The notebook became her shield, the only place where her voice couldn't be silenced. Most people passed her by, never asking why she walked with her head lowered, why she lingered outside longer than she stayed inside. No one noticed the way her smile had slowly disappeared or how her drawings grew darker with each passing week. What they didn't see, what they chose not to see, was the storm building around her, a storm that would soon spill out of the shadows of her home and into the public eye. And when it did, the truth would shake everyone who thought injustice was something that only happened far away.
At first, the signs were small, easy for others to dismiss, but impossible for her to ignore. Her stepmother's tone sharper with her than with the other children. Plates set on the table for everyone else, but hers left empty, as if by mistake. Clothes that no longer fit, handed down without care, while her siblings wore new ones bought just for them. She learned to keep quiet, to hold back the questions that pressed against her chest. But silence did not protect her. One morning at school, she overheard whispers, children repeating things they'd heard at home. She doesn't belong here. She's not really one of us. Words cut sharper than any punishment. And when she tried to speak up, even her teacher's eyes seemed to slide past her, choosing comfort over confrontation. The notebook she carried became more than sketches. It became evidence of a world she longed for. Pages filled with houses that felt safe, families that looked at her with love, in skies unbroken by storms. She clung to it like a lifeline, because reality was tightening its grip. At home, things worsened. Her stepmother's voice turned to shouting. Chores piled on her shoulders while her siblings played freely. When she hesitated, when she slowed, the punishments were harsh and swift. Bruises hidden under sleeves, tears wiped away before anyone could see. She tried to stay invisible, but injustice has a way of finding light. One evening, as rain battered the windows, she made a mistake, spilled a glass of water across the table. The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. Her stepmother's glare fixed on her, words laced with venom. "You're nothing. You don't belong in this family." Those words, spoken so plainly, so viciously, lodged deep inside her. She ran. Out the door, into the storm, clutching her soaked notebook against her chest. The night swallowed her cries as she stumbled through the streets, unsure where her small legs would take her. All she knew was she couldn't go back. Then, flashing lights ahead. A police station. She pushed the heavy door open, her body trembling, her face streaked with tears and rain. Officers turned, startled by the sight of this tiny girl standing alone in the doorway, shivering, gasping for breath. And then, it happened. The notebook slipped from her hands. Pages scattering across the floor, drawings of a little girl trapped, unheard, desperate for a safe place. The room fell into silence. They stared at her. She stared back, waiting, hoping.
The officers bent down, lifting the notebook from the floor. Page after page revealed the silent story she had carried alone. Drawings of a girl shut out in the rain, punished for her skin, cast aside while others smiled at the table. Each sketch was a confession in crayon, and for the first time, her pain was undeniable. But before anyone could speak, the door slammed open. Her stepmother stormed in, her voice sharp, dripping with false concern. "There you are!" she barked, eyes narrowing at the child. To the officers, she painted herself as the worried guardian of a troubled girl, lost, dramatic, exaggerating. She reached for the child's arm, ready to drag her back into silence. The little girl flinched, pressing herself against the counter, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. Every instinct told her she would not be believed. She had seen this performance before. The stepmother's mask of respectability, polished enough to fool neighbors, teachers, even church friends. And here, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the station, the same question hung heavy. Would they see her truth, or only the story told by the woman with power? The room thickened with tension. Officers exchanged glances, hesitation, doubt, calculation. The stepmother's voice grew louder, more demanding, echoing through the station. And for a chilling moment, it felt like history repeating itself. A black child's pain minimized, her voice ignored, her body pulled back into the shadows of abuse. Her small fists tightened at her sides. She lifted her chin, trembling but defiant, and whispered the words that cut through the chaos. "Please, don't make me go back." Silence. The kind of silence that decides fates. Every eye in the room turned not to the stepmother, but to her. And in that fragile, breathless instant, the truth finally demanded to be seen.
The room did not stay silent for long. One officer stepped forward, his voice steady but firm, asking the stepmother to sit down. Another crouched beside the little girl, not as an authority figure, but as someone finally willing to listen. For the first time, she wasn't brushed aside. She wasn't invisible. Her words, fragile but unshakable, were written down, documented, believed. That night, she did not go home with the woman who hurt her. Instead, she was taken somewhere safe, where the door stayed open and meals were shared without fear. But the impact of that night was more than just one child's rescue. It became a reminder of how easily a story like hers could have been ignored, erased, or dismissed simply because of who she was. How many children have begged for help and gone unheard? How many times has a mask of respectability outweighed the truth of a young black voice crying out in pain? Her bravery forced the world around her to pause. She showed that even the smallest voice, when given a chance, can reveal the deepest injustice. And though she carried scars, she also carried proof that change is possible when someone chooses to see what is right in front of them. This isn't just her story, it's ours. A story that exposes the cracks in a system meant to protect, but too often silences the vulnerable. So the question remains, how many more voices must cry out before we finally listen?